42 unforced errors. Jannik Sinner put up 42 unforced errors across that Roman clay semi-final. And yet somehow that is not the story people are talking about today. I was sitting there watching that third set, 4-2 Sinner. The crowd on the Foro Italico absolutely electric, and then the physio walks on. And the moment those hands hit Sinner's quads, I knew exactly what Daniil Medvedev was about to do. Because anyone who has watched Medvedev for more than 6 months knows that man does not let a single ambiguity pass without filing a formal grievance with the universe. He marched up to that chair umpire, switched to French, and which is always the tell, by the way, he goes French when he's genuinely furious, and said, direct quote, when we call the physio for cramps, we don't get fined. That sentence is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Unpack it. Medvedev is not just complaining about a gamesmanship call. He is lodging a structural indictment of how ATP Tour physio rules are being selectively enforced at the highest level against the world number one in front of his home crowd in the semi-final of the Italian Open. That is not a complaint. That is a declaration. Now, before you write this off as Medvedev being Medvedev, the perpetual agitator, the guy who once asked a crowd whether they had a brain, hear me out because the on-court evidence here is actually damning. Watch the replay carefully. Sinner is not getting one quad worked on. He is getting both quads massaged in sequence and he is sipping pickle juice between treatments. If you don't follow tennis physiology, pickle juice is essentially the sport's open secret for cramping management. The sodium and acetic acid hit your nervous system fast and interrupt the misfiring muscle signals. It is not a treatment for a structural injury. It is a cramping remedy, full stop. And here's the part that actually bothers me. Jamie Murray on commentary said it plainly. He's getting his other quad massaged now, so it's a tough one to explain that you have two injured quads and it's not cramp while you're sipping pickle juice. That is not a fringe take. That is a former world doubles number one, a man who has lived inside the ATP locker room culture for 2 decades, telling you what he sees. When someone with that kind of institutional credibility says that out loud on a major broadcast, you do not dismiss it as conjecture. So here is where I stand on this, and I'm not going to hedge it. Under ATP Tour regulations, if a player is experiencing cramping, they are not entitled to a medical timeout. A cramping player can have the physio come on, but the clock does not stop, and no additional recovery time is granted beyond what the rules normally permit. What happened on that court in Rome stretched that boundary in a way that Medvedev, and frankly, I think most seasoned tour observers, found indefensible. Players exploit this every single week. Murray said it himself. But there is a difference between it happening in a second round match in Bucharest and it happening in a semi-final between the world number one and a top five player on the world's biggest clay court outside Roland Garros. The stakes amplify the scrutiny. I was looking at the tape and I noticed something else that I haven't seen anyone else mention. Look at the way Sinner moves between points in the second set, specifically around the 5-5 stage. His lateral split step is already losing crispness. The court coverage that makes him so brutally efficient, that ability to reset behind the baseline, absorb pace, and redirect with his two-handed backhand, it starts to look labored. And this matters because Sinner's entire defensive model depends on his legs. He is not Carlos Alcaraz. He does not have that elastic, almost supernatural burst that gets Alcaraz out of positions he has no business recovering from. Sinner's game is built on mechanical precision and extraordinary fitness. When the legs go, the system degrades, and you can see it in the data. A 6-1 first set collapses into a 7-5 second set loss. That is not tactical, that is physical. Now, here's the bit that actually bothers me at the deepest level. This is not the first time we have had this conversation about Jannik Sinner and cramping. At the Shanghai Masters, he withdrew against Talon Griekspoor mid-match, like cramping cited as a major factor. At the Australian Open earlier this year, the cramping issue surfaced again in grueling conditions. And now Rome on clay in what should be his most comfortable surface, in front of his home crowd with the title within reach. The pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Sinner is physically dominant in the way a Formula One car is dominant, magnificent at peak performance, but increasingly vulnerable when the operating conditions deviate from the ideal. And on the ATP Tour in 2025 and 2026, conditions are almost never ideal. I've heard whispers from people inside the clay court ecosystem, fitness coaches, and conditioning staff who work adjacent to the top 10, that Sinner's schedule density since his legal situation was resolved has been aggressive. The man came back with something to prove, and he proved it spectacularly, but that kind of motivational overdrive has a physiological cost that does not always show up in the win column immediately. It shows up in cramped quads in Rome in the semifinal against a player who absolutely will not give you an inch. And Medvedev is precisely the wrong opponent to be physically compromised against because Medvedev has weaponized durability into an art form. His game plan on clay, which is a surface where he should, on paper, be at his weakest, is to extend rallies beyond the point of comfort and make the physical attrition work in his favor. That moon ball to the backhand corner, that heavy kick serve out wide that forces Sinner to sprint and reset. Every single ball Medvedev hit in that second set was designed to make the Italian's legs work harder. It was chess played with a sledgehammer. The rain delay that suspended play with Sinner leading 4-2 in the third set is genuinely fascinating from a strategic standpoint. I will tell you right now, that delay is worse for Sinner than it is for Medvedev. Here's why. If you are cramping, if your legs are already sending distress signals, a prolonged pause does not reset your body. The lactic acid accumulation, the muscle fatigue, it does not vanish because you sat in a locker room for a few hours. What the delay does do is give Medvedev's mind time to reset, to recalibrate, to dismantle whatever tactical adjustments Sinner had been building in that third set. Medvedev is at his most dangerous when he has time to think. Give that man a rain delay when he's down 2-4 and he will come back out with a completely redesigned game plan. I have watched him do it repeatedly. The 4-2 lead sounds comfortable. It is not. Not with Medvedev on the other side of the net, not with Sinner's legs in the state they appeared to be in, and not with the crowd dynamic that will inevitably shift if Medvedev breaks back and makes it 4-4. The Foro Italico crowd loves Sinner the way Roman crowds love a champion, lavishly, completely, and then with devastating volatility if doubt enters the equation. One break and the energy shifts. Sinner has proven he can handle pressure, but not when his body is betraying him in real time. Here is what the next 3 months tell us if Sinner loses this match. Roland Garros is in 2 weeks. The cramping weakness, now publicly exposed and on video for every coaching team on tour to study, becomes a tactical target. You will see opponents, especially Alcaraz, who already knows how to construct marathon physical battles, deliberately engineering longer points, higher bouncing topspin to the backhand, conditions designed to exhaust rather than outgun. Sinner's inside out forehand and his clean ball striking are weapons. His legs right now are a liability. If he holds on and wins, if he comes back out after that rain delay, closes out the third set, and goes to the Rome final against Casper Ruud, then I think we are witnessing something even more interesting. A champion who is learning how to win ugly. And winning ugly at the highest level of professional tennis is arguably the most elite skill in the sport. Rafael Nadal built a dynasty on it. But Sinner has never had to win ugly because he has never had to. He has won through excellence. This would be new territory. As for Medvedev's complaint, the ATP will not act on it. They never do in real time, and the political calculation of penalizing the world number one at his home event is one that no chair umpire or tour official is going to make unilaterally. But the complaint is in the public record now, it is on broadcast footage, and it adds another chapter to a narrative that is quietly building around Sinner. That the pressure of being number one, of carrying the weight of an entire nation's tennis expectations, of coming back from a doping controversy that never fully resolved in the court of public opinion, all of it is starting to fracture the machine just slightly around the edges. The clay season finale will be a referendum. Sinner versus his own body. Sinner versus Medvedev's fury. Sinner versus the ghost of a controversy that will follow him to every single slam until someone replaces him at the top. I have no doubt he is the best player in the world right now. But the best player in the world just got exposed, physically, tactically, and procedurally, on live television on his home clay by a man who decided that enough was enough. Watch this space very carefully because the next 6 weeks at Roland Garros will define whether Jannik Sinner is building a dynasty or whether we are watching the first visible cracks appear in what we all assumed was an impenetrable fortress. Casper Ruud waits in the final. A man who plays percentage clay court tennis with the discipline of an accountant and the endurance of a marathoner. If Sinner gets there, the legs question does not go away. It just gets a new arena.